Welcome to Cosmic Chosen. Let that sink in, Chosen One. Not a metaphor, not a fantasy, a spiritual confirmation of the authority that's just been transferred to you, not necessarily from a man, but from a moment in destiny itself. The scariest part of awakening? Realizing you were never crazy, just ahead of your time, surrounded by people who needed you to stay small so they could feel big, who mistook your grace for weakness, your humility for irrelevance, your silence for consent. But that illusion ends tonight. This is your irreversible activation. Not next week, not when you're more ready. Now, because something just shifted in the spiritual realm. And whether or not the world is ready, you are. Trump's private empire. In this message symbolizes power long hidden, doors long locked, realms of influence long denied to people like you. Until now, you are being handed access, not because of popularity, privilege, or pedigree, but because you were chosen before birth. And the people around you, they'll feel it, even if they can't explain it. They'll start watching you with different eyes, eyes that know something has changed, even if their pride won't admit it. You'll walk into rooms and conversations will shift, not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. The empire is yours, not to rule with ego, but to build with divine precision. God doesn't give keys to the loudest voice. He gives them to the cleanest hands. You are not here to fit in. You are here to inherit. Walk boldly. It's already yours. Here's the disturbing truth. The average person unconsciously suppresses their most authentic self just to avoid triggering the truth in someone else. A 2023 psychology research on social mirroring claims. Consider that. The majority of individuals are only acting to maintain their acceptable status. However, you have consistently been a flaw in that system, and you'll begin radiating the frequency they claimed didn't exist tonight, and you will cease shrinking for their comfort. This is the humorous part. Ever notice how, like unpaid extras in a Netflix film, random folks from 7 years ago suddenly reappear when you begin to recover and glow? Hey, I just wanted to check in. You're not a check-in, sorry. The narrative surprise they didn't anticipate is you. So grab a seat, choose one. It's not motivating jargon. This isn't discourse about spiritual cupcakes. The episode when everything changes is this one. And you won't just step into a new persona by tonight's finish. You will represent something they have been hoping never materializes. Let's begin. A burning mirror that doesn't reflect. Instead of reflecting, you will turn into a mirror that flames. You are not here to mirror the false selves of others. You have come to reveal what they have been concealing. And you're going to become just that beginning tonight. It's a mirror that burns through illusion, not a harmless one. You will no longer be reflecting back their meticulously constructed pictures. You're going to start exposing everything they've been attempting to hide, including their false confidence, guilt, falsehoods, and fear of being unimportant with actual people. It's a silent but forceful transformation. You won't need to speak. Your vitality will speak for itself. People will start to feel uneasy around you, not because you're doing inappropriately, but rather because you're becoming too genuine for their performance. In actuality, the majority of individuals don't fear criticism. They fear being seen completely, profoundly, and unfiltered. You will do it simply by entering a room. People who haven't done the inner work will begin to suffer breakdowns as a result of you. When they feel defensive, agitated, or uneasy around you, they won't be able to articulate why. But it will keep happening. And that's because the heat you now carry is too much for their masks to withstand. They may describe you as chilly, haughty, or frightening. You don't let me lie to myself anymore, and I hate that, is what they're really saying. You see, individuals feel at ease in front of flattering mirrors. However, they want to destroy that mirror as soon as it begins to reveal the reality. They will attempt to turn your truth into an issue. However, they secretly know precisely what you are, evidence that their meticulously maintained image is crumbling. Most people don't discuss this power. Others are forced to face themselves or go away because of the searing, unadulterated power of space. Being superior to others is not the point. It involves possessing an inner clarity that transforms into spiritual X-ray vision. It's not always glamorous either. It may be lonely at times. It may sometimes result in you being mislabeled, misinterpreted, and even despised. It's genuine, however, and that energy will lock into place tonight. The world is no longer only reflected in you. Its illusions are ready to crumble under your feet. Evidence that spiritual combat is not metaphorical. That spiritual battle is not a metaphor will be shown by you. It involves seclusion, gaslighting, and surveillance. This is no longer an abstract idea. There is spiritual warfare. Furthermore, it has never been a metaphor for selected ones. You've been living it, and you're going to start seeing it for what it really is tonight. You were never just going through a difficult time or experiencing terrible luck. You were being watched. Without ever recognizing it, the systems they supported were testing, studying, and manipulating you. Every betrayal, phony buddy, every odd time of loneliness wasn't a coincidence. It was the objective. It was a clever technique. They deceived you until you began to doubt reality. To keep you weak, they cut you off from your networks of support. To keep you too exhausted to see the truth, they filled your life with diversions. The saddest aspect is that the majority of those who were being used against you were unaware of their involvement. They believed they were just putting boundaries in place, moving on, or acting in their own best interests. On a spiritual level, however, they were just pawns in a true battle for your soul. When your energy contains something unique and ancient, this is what occurs. You are flagged when your frequency begins to jeopardize the lie-based systems. You are not allowed to live your life like other people do. They're watching you. You're put to the test. You have to decide between breaking down and breaking through all the time. And now that you've made it through everything, you're at a point where those patterns begin to make sense. In retrospect, you will see that betrayal was not personal. It was calculated. That defeat wasn't a penalty. It was a shove. It wasn't nothingness that was isolated. It was getting ready. For this moment, you have been schooled in quiet. The way you remained upright when no one applauded. How you stood your ground when no one took you seriously. The manner in which you trusted your gut even when it didn't make sense on paper. It wasn't all for naught. The battle that is going on around you starts to show tonight. Not just on an emotional level, but also on a spiritual, energy, and even physical level. The curtain comes up. The patterns show themselves. You start to see the battlefield for what it really is, and all of a sudden you stop feeling crazy about it. Moreover, you are no longer the prey. The intelligence is being carried by you. A rate at which false systems are corrupted. You will turn into a frequency that taints phony systems. Your energy is beginning to accomplish something that others can no longer pretend. It's not only that you're vibrating higher. What's occurring to you isn't even mentioned in that term. Your frequency is starting to become annoying, in a method that dismantles everything based on falsehoods, not in a disorganized manner. People who depend on performance, control, and manipulation will begin to falter when you walk into a room these days. They won't say the same thing. Their charm is ineffective. In real time, their control over the space will begin to deteriorate. Mostly due to your presence. It has nothing to do with ego. It has nothing to do with power trips. It's about the evolution of your energy. Your aura no longer blends, and since you've lost so much, experienced so much darkness, and been shattered and rebuilt so many times. By just being there, you're turning into a live signal that reveals what's false. Although they may not be able to identify it, people will sense a change. That change occurs when they see that their typical strategies no longer work with your energy. When you're in the room, those who used to control it will lose control. Why? Because their energy was always based on control, fear, image, and lies. Yours isn't either. Truth is now the foundation of your frequency. It's clean in addition to being high. Additionally, illusion-based systems are corrupted by clean frequency. People may avoid eye contact, change the topic, chuckle uncomfortably, or appear as if you said something incorrectly when you were absolutely correct because of this. It's not you. Their indoctrination is being broken by your frequency. You'll become more aware of technological hiccups. You'll sense others energizing or depleting you at random, because your nervous system is now sensitive to things that others aren't yet able to notice. You'll enter spaces that seem strange, not because you're sensitive, but because your soul won't lower itself to be comfortable. You won't be able to remain in some places for very long. This change is genuine. Not only is your energy increasing, it is now directly endangering everything that was constructed in the dark. Officially, you are now too spiritually costly for the low-cost games they formerly played. A break in time. You'll start breaking time. You're entering a realm of spiritual power that distorts reality. Literally, not figuratively. You're going to shatter time the way they know it. With you, patterns that have persisted for generations will end. In your presence, cycles that people said were just the way things are will come to an end. Your actions tonight have an impact on the past, present, and future. People from your past are now thinking about you because of this. Why would someone you haven't spoken to in years suddenly text or contact you? It's not arbitrary. Right now, you're vibrating between dimensions. The strain that your chest feels. Stress isn't that. Fear isn't that. Data is what it is. An upload that is spiritual. At the same time, your spirit is downloading cosmic duty, ancient soul memory, and divine intelligence. All of the things that went wrong are being reset by you. Everything that was misrepresented, fabricated, kept quiet, or taken. You are being given the power to repair it by the cosmos. Closure is no longer your goal. The closure is you. You are not alone in your rehabilitation. Timelines that were formerly dominated by suffering are rewritten. Those who have harmed you will begin to recall their actions. They won't even understand why it's now coming back to haunt them. When a chosen one turns into a time breaker, that is what occurs. You're correcting, not simply climbing. They will no longer be protected by their denial. Their false narratives will no longer be credible. Everything phony that was constructed around your name vibrates to pieces as a result of your growth. Even your former self, the one who endured hardships, didn't know better, and put up with unworthy treatment, will begin to sense your presence. You'll get the impression that you're seeing yourself again, a version of you that at last received the voice, knowledge, and justice they were never given. Unbeknownst to you, you have been ready for this moment. Time is now bending in the direction of your light. The thing they didn't anticipate is you. Everything they twisted begins to right itself through you tonight, thanks to the restart button and the cosmic interruption. They hoped you wouldn't remember the secret. They'll turn you into the secret they thought you'd forget. They did more than simply injure you. They buried you so deeply in noise, humiliation, and distraction that you began to question if you were ever from light. In an attempt to keep you unconscious forever, they surrounded you with fictitious timelines, fictitious identities, and fictitious storylines. The recovery of your memories, however, was something they never explained. Cellular memory, not only ideas. That memory starts to hit tonight, and it won't whisper when it strikes. Like thunder bursting through quiet, it will scream through your soul. That unsettling feeling that something wasn't adding up, that you were observing life, but not really participating in it, as everyone else seemed to be, is something you've always experienced. As if everyone had already accepted a script that you were never given. Confusion never existed there. That was acknowledgement, a profound age-old understanding that what you were seeing was incomplete. They said you were too defiant, too passionate, and too sensitive. In reality, however, they intended to say, you're too awake. They attempted to rewire your brain to make you forget that you are a direct descendant of power, purpose, and light. Because of this, you were penalized for being still, while others fled towards chaos, ridiculed for being different, and disgraced for knowing too much. However, the programming is presently breaking. The flaws they were unable to close are allowing your holy memories to seep back. And this is the moment when the secret they dreaded most, that you would remember someday, is revealed. They weren't only trying to manipulate you. They were afraid you might awaken and talk. They pushed you so hard to forget because of this. Ignore your gut. Ignore the truth. Long before you talked, your energy moved rooms. Forget all it. However, your memory is more than just mental. It has a spiritual component. It's a part of your spirit, and it couldn't be completely erased by pain, manipulation, or falsehoods. That memory comes online tonight. The secret has been unearthed. They attempted to stifle the revelation that is you. Something old has returned in you, and they wished that the version of you that rises now would never reappear. It's too late. You've recalled. A living assessment. You'll turn into a live judge. There won't be any work on your part. You won't need to provide your side of the story, defend yourself, or reveal receipts. People will start to be convinced just by your presence. When you really heal, that is what occurs. When you quit being modest, stop defending yourself, and truly embrace the version of yourself that they said would never succeed, you turn into a live judge. The truth now passes through you, not because you're resentful or seeking retribution. Truth doesn't need a microphone. It just appears, and all that is untrue begins to fall apart before it. They refer to you as the issue. They attempted to use your silence as an excuse for guilt. They thought that your absence would make what they did no longer be remembered, but it didn't. In fact, the penalties became more pronounced the longer you remained silent. And now you're entering a time when people's consciences will be awakened by the mere mention of your name, like an incessant alarm clock. They will be discovered by their karma. Through the mirror, your life now reflects theirs, not some magical penalty. Because you were never the bad guy. The test was you. They also didn't succeed. They will be haunted by your mending. They will be disturbed by your glow-up. They will be more annoyed by your calm than by your agony. You can see they were never remorseful because of this. When you were broken, they were merely cozy. You've outgrown their stories, however, and you're living evidence that none of their strategies were effective, that you were more spiritually protected than they could have ever dreamed, colder than their rejection, and stronger than their slander campaigns. You weren't just taken away from them. Their cover story was gone. The proof will be your independence. The last argument will be your success. And from now on, the implicit message that permeates every area you enter is, this is who they try to destroy. Delayed repercussions will be activated by your presence. Although they will know in their hearts why things are going apart, they will attempt to seem perplexed. You are now the punishment they believed they would never have to suffer because they tampered with someone they had no right to touch. Their power trips are over. Their power excursions will come to a stop because of you. They borrowed time to run their games, and that time just ran out. The whole dynamic changes the moment you stop looking for justifications, excuses, or confirmation. The table they attempted to dominate is no longer where you sit. You're getting rid of the table completely. What formerly seemed to be their dominance over you is now shown to be nothing more than smoke, ego, and deception. And because you finally come to terms with the reality, that illusion dispels tonight. They hoped you would never understand that you were never under their control. You were just enchanted with them. Because you persisted in seeking purpose amid the turmoil, they were able to maintain control. You remained because you sought clarity. You over-explained because you desired calm. You gave them several opportunities to behave as if they were deserving of your presence because you wanted the truth. However, those times are now past. You've stopped asking. You know. And the whole system of manipulation breaks down when a selected one begins to go from knowing to hoping. They flourished on your skepticism, your compassion, and your determination to continue believing people even after they had shown their true selves. However, you now have the answers to all of the questions they formerly left unanswered. Your vitality no longer begs. It attests. You no longer ask for permission to be at peace. It says. And what used to leave you feeling helpless or perplexed? It's obvious to you now that it was a diversion to keep you little enough to support their ego. Tonight is the last day of it. They no longer have the ability to manipulate your thoughts, feelings, or worth. Because you're not the one who's hurt and seeking healing. The closure is you. You're no longer the abandoned, so they can't breadcrumb you, guilt trip you, or ghost you into remaining in touch. The awakening is you. And only when you were unaware of your own strength did theirs function. You do now. As soon as you stop acting out the part they gave you, their power trip falls. They are no longer in charge. They're in the open. A version of you that they never thought they'd have to answer to is what they're really dealing with right now. The holy book they are unable to read. They won't be able to read the precious book that you are. You are going to grow into the type of truth that cannot be diluted, disputed, or Googled. The kind that, as it is the manual, does not come with one. It's the type of intensity that pierces without being loud. Without uttering a word, you will sense the change as you enter rooms. You genuinely carry codes that others weren't made to access, not because you're attempting to be profound or enigmatic. When you transcend the level of surface awareness, that is what occurs. You transform into a holy text, one composed of presence rather than paper. People will sense something old when they hear your voice. They will be attracted to you because your frequency reminds them of something they lost or were unaware of, not because they understand you. However, many will get irritated rather than respect that. They will attempt to minimize, confine, and categorize you. Why? Because it's simpler to make fun of what you don't understand than to acknowledge that you lack the spiritual capacity to accept it. When they see you, they will become convinced that you are the issue. In actuality, what unnerves people is the discrepancy between your awareness and theirs. Your power becomes impenetrable at this point. Attempting to explain yourself to those who are incapable of listening without ego will be a waste of your time and energy. People who won't remove the veil from their own eyes won't argue to be seen, because your truth cannot be debated. It just is. And the message will come from your life, including the way you talk, move, hold space, and even keep quiet. It won't appeal to everyone. Not everyone is expected to. You were supposed to confuse some. Their spiritual result is that uncertainty. Reading you like a book is not why you are here. Your purpose is to be seen as a mystery, and some may be pulled to you, while others will withdraw in discomfort when they see they can't understand you, interpret you, or duplicate you. That's how you separate the genuine from the phony, the wheat from the weeds. And you just needed to be the generational programming interrupter. You will be the one disrupting the programming of generations. You weren't made to fit into the narrative that your family kept telling. You were made to break it violently, fully, and without apology. They covered up the disorder with tradition. They referred to this quiet as respect. They accepted the pain as love. You are the end of it all. You finally got the guts to question what everyone else mindlessly followed, not because you despise your family. You were not the rebel because of that inquiry. It revealed the truth to you. Furthermore, truth does not come to be preserved. It arrives to cause disruption. As if it were your heritage, they wanted you to continue their habits. But you were quick to see through it. The emotional manipulation, gaslighting, favoritism, and secrets that everyone knew but never said aloud made you think as a child, this can't be right. They saw that you were paying attention. At that point, they began to treat you as if you were the issue. The issue wasn't with you. You were the break, the flaw in the generational trauma matrix that commanded everyone to smile and keep quiet. They will feel betrayed by your mending. Your limits will come across as disrespectful. Bitterness will be the term used to describe your distance. Don't be duped, however. That isn't accurate. Programming is speaking there. Programming that instructs them to strike down anything that challenges their sense of familial belonging. Additionally, you were hazardous since you ceased to fulfill your designated duty, not for your actions, but rather for your decision to stop. You wouldn't shrink. You declined to perform for a system that profited on your quiet. You refused to be its emotional mule. You are not here to win people over. Your purpose is to free. It was you who left and at last took a breath. "This ends with me," stated the person, and meant it. They sense that change as well. Some may attempt to study you in order to discover a new method to guilt you back in, not to learn anything. Because your calm demonstrates how dysfunctional the system was, some people will be afraid of you. Others will continue to act as if nothing has changed. However, because you didn't just end a cycle, everything has. A heritage of survival masquerading as love was destroyed by you. You are now the live proof that freedom was always attainable. A soul too pricey for them to get. You'll turn into a soul that they can't afford. At some stage of your development, you stop lowering your frequency to be comprehended. Not with conceit, but with need. The time has come. You enter a realm of spiritual worth tonight that cannot be negotiated. Your spirit turns become a luxury rather than a necessity. This implies that those who previously had unfettered access to you will now be unable to do so. They no longer have the money to enter, not because you changed the locks. You tried to make people feel at ease for years. You became smaller. You went into too much detail. You disregarded your instincts in an attempt to maintain an unreal serenity. You put up with individuals who didn't relate to your healed self, just to your old scars. But the cost of healing increased. And the person who recognizes their value and behaves accordingly has taken the place of the version of you that they formerly controlled. You are no longer free to be here. Honesty is expensive. Accountability is the price. It requires spiritual development, and that is beyond the means of the majority. They'll become aware. You'll cease answering. You won't feel bad about turning down invites. The telephone will ring, and the reality will strike them as they attempt to determine what's wrong. You're not angry by your quiet. It's judgment. At last, you quit trying to explain yourself to those who only listen and don't comprehend. They are ill-prepared to breathe in the environment created by your new vitality. They will discuss your transformation. They will also be correct, because it's not you that they really miss, but rather their previous authority over you. There will be no exceptions for family. Spiritual access is no longer granted by blood relationships. Someone doesn't get to enter your space at all if they consistently bring uncertainty, disruption, or ego. Your calm is now gated, regardless of the title. You are a premium presence. Your vitality is sacred. They may knock. They may offer an apology. They may act modestly. However, because you're no longer motivated by guilt, their access is still expired until their spirit has changed and they've put in the necessary effort. Alignment is your governing principle. You didn't grow aloof. You turned become a god. They're now learning the hard way. There was never a right to access you. It was a luxury all along. Additionally, that privilege has been taken away. What they said wasn't possible. You will turn into what they said was not conceivable. They said that the harm they inflicted on you was irreversible and that you would never be able to bounce back or rise without them. They clinked glasses when they believed they had permanently buried you, smiled when you tripped, and gossiped when you sobbed. However, they were unaware of and unable to quantify the fact that you were never their victim. You were becoming into the one who transformed ruins into resurrection. The one thing they said could never exist. They doubted you more than that. Because they found comfort in your fall, they invested in your failure. Your suffering served as evidence of their might. However, healing changed the whole story. Now every peaceful breath you breathe, every powerful stride you take, and every truthful word you utter actively contradicts the narrative they told about you. It was not intended for you to get here. Nevertheless, you are becoming into reality. They are unable to ignore the irrefutable, live evidence that their conclusions were only conjectures. Your strength is what people found funny about you. Your training ground is now the trauma they utilized to categorize you. They have transformed the wounds they ridiculed into spiritual technology. They are all engraved with knowledge, all of them leading to power, redemption, and survival. You no longer just get by. You are radiant, and they are offended by your brightness. It is truthful, not because it is conceited. You were too broken, they claimed. They're going to choke on your delight. Too impoverished. Receipts are going to increase your benefits. Too much harm. The safest place in the room is now you. For those people who were previously subjected to the same falsehoods, as well as for yourself. You no longer live your life alone. A prophecy is being fulfilled. You are the result of a soul refusing to remain in the grave. You're not just getting up. Those who swore you wouldn't can see you rising. And every time you smile, prosper, and live in harmony, all the curses they carelessly spoke over you are lifted. Your recovery is not a tale of triumph. It is a cosmic smack in the face of all of their falsehoods. And tonight, your mere being is a defiance, an inexplicable marvel, and a fact they wished would never be discovered. It's too late. You are it already. The confirmation that God was observing. You will serve as a constant reminder that God was keeping an eye on everything. They believed they were getting away with it. Believed that God wasn't looking because of the quiet. I believe that your breakdowns, loneliness, and bewilderment were indications of both human and heavenly desertion. However, they were blind to the fact that God was present. God was recording every falsehood they made, every phony apology, every private discussion, and every nasty joke they made all vanished into thin air. Everything was being tallied, and the balance starts to shift tonight. You weren't fortunate enough to live. You were shielded, which is why you survived. It wasn't only your own strength that got you through. When no one else would, heaven took you, and God was laying a table while they were whispering, plotting, and pointing fingers, believing you were done. In their presence, not simply behind closed doors. That quiet wasn't carelessness. It was a plan. God kept silent because it was necessary for the setup. The storm is coming to raise you to a point where your truth overrides their falsehoods, not to destroy you. Your ascent will be more than merely motivational. The procedure will be surgical. It will cut through all of the lies they have attempted to spread about you. You're not just returning in peace. You will return with evidence. And they'll have to observe, since the same people who attempted to discredit you are now compelled to attest to the favor you possess. Squinting for imperfections, they will only see greatness. They will look for openings, but they will discover that doors are locked. Your life is the headline as the miraculous receipts come in. This isn't retaliation. This is audience-supported restoration. In order to make the time painful, God waited until now. In order for the people who laughed to understand that they weren't making fun of you. Something sacred was the subject of their laughter. And the expiry date had just reached by that laughing. Standing in your strength, clarity, and healing presence is you. You end up serving as a reminder that God never overlooked injustice. Quiet by quiet, brick by brick, He was constructing your justification. And tonight, that quiet becomes a roar, not from your lips, but from the sky. A power without requesting authorization. You will transform into a force that no longer needs permission to exist. You tried to make yourself palatable for years. To make others feel more at ease, you toned down your voice, your energy, and your honesty. In areas where you were already entitled to ownership, you requested authorization. Before you even gave yourself the all-clear, you waited for others to affirm you, to applaud you, to say yes. But that version of you dies tonight. The person who pleaded to be included, who walked on eggshells, and who overexplained. Lost. Something wild and old inside you awakens tonight. It doesn't ring. There is no whispering. It doesn't pose inquiries. It moves. This is the you that doesn't give a damn whether people accept it, applaud, or stick around. To appease weak egos, this version doesn't weaken or decrease its brightness. This version moves like prophesy and appears like thunder. Furthermore, it completely embraces its mission without waiting to be understood. You've been duped into believing that your existence is a privilege, that your voice required filters, that your sensitivity was a weakness, and that being too much made you inadequate. However, such was never the case. The precise quantity needed to break chains was what they called too much, not just for yourself, but also for others who are silently observing you as you wait for approval to get up. Now there's no turning back. You've given up trying to find a place at the table. The table is you. You no longer want for others to recognize your value. You're creating a world in which their consent is not important. Your throat has been freed from the terror that formerly locked it shut. You are no longer doubting yourself. You're choosing, acting, and evolving. People will also take notice. Some will become smaller. Some will be offended by your audacity. However, those who are genuine will feel liberated as a result. You just imparted a valuable lesson to the world. The world stops saying no when you stop requesting permission. So, take a big breath tonight. Enter without knocking. Don't apologize while speaking. Continue to exist without becoming smaller. Because the person who knows they were born, selected, has formally replaced the version of you that pleaded to be picked. The exam they'll all failing. They will all fail the test that you become. You are no longer only surviving life. You are passing through the masks of others. You're turning into the test they never prepared for, the mirror they can't escape, and the evidence they can't ignore. Everything that lies underneath their outward smiles will be exposed by your presence. Your elevation naturally separates the sincere from the envious, not because you're attempting to expose them. Their responses will begin creating their own report cards as soon as you level up. This has nothing to do with conceit. It has to do with alignment. They will either flee away from your light or match it when you shine. The important thing, however, is that you won't have to speak. It all becomes a magnificent trigger. The calm you exude, the self-assurance you possess, the effortless radiance you give off. People will begin acting differently because they can no longer disguise who they really are as a result of your metamorphosis. Not because you changed. Because they have been privately competing with you the whole time. Some may silently retreat, unwilling to express their happiness for you. Some people will attempt to undermine things they have no control over. And since they never felt threatened by your progress, a select number will climb with you. They awaited it. God utilizes your life like litmus paper now that it's here. Who congratulates, who chit-chats, who retreats, who mimics, and who complicates. You become the test not to embarrass anybody, but to show who is really destined for you. Due to the fact that the next level you're entering cannot afford fake assistance. Who likes you is not the test. Who can manage what God is doing in you is the question. Like oil and water, jealousy, ego, and repressed resentment will arise. Since your existence now necessitates honesty, it must. Not even discernment will be required. You will learn everything from their responses. Thus,